is Jonathan Thomas, and Jonathan is introducing his OpenShot library, a powerful new video editing framework. So here you go. Have a good time, John.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. As he said, my name is Jonathan Thomas, and I'm the creator and founder of OpenShot Video Editor. This is my third time speaking at Scale, so I'm excited to be here. And I'm very excited to show a new framework that I've been, that I've been working on the last 2 years. And so basically, I'm going to go back a little bit to start with and show you what OpenShot Video Editor is, and then I'm going to take you forward to what's coming next and why I'm so excited about it. So for those of you that might not know, OpenShot Video Editor is a consumer desktop video editor. It's open source, it's free, it's licensed GPL version 3. It can be downloaded on openshot.org, and it only works on Linux right now, which is one of the things I'm addressing today. But basically, for those who don't know, a video editor is just useful for mixing videos together, trimming videos, cropping, putting a title in front of a video, fading in and out, things like that, and then uploading to YouTube, perhaps. So at its core, that's what OpenShot Video Editor is. And every year, not every year, but every time we release OpenShot Video Editor, we put a video release. And so I wanted to start off with that to show what the current version looks like and some of the features that it released with. So I'm going to start with a video. Okay, well, I'm trying to talk to the live stream as well. So this is the 3D animation interface in OpenShot. But as you can see, you can do some pretty incredible 3D animations without having to be a 3D animator or an artist, just by choosing the animation, typing a few things, and then boom, there you go. Now, I don't know why you would want to explode a title of your brand, but you can do it. These videos are made in OpenShot. That would only make sense, right? Okay, so hopefully that caught up whoever doesn't know what OpenShot is. It's just, it's simple, it's pretty flexible and powerful. It doesn't get too much in your way, and it's not too complicated. We always try to make it very simple. And as you can see, there's not 100 buttons on the screen. There's not 100 sliders. There's, a lot of video editors tend to go, they have just buttons everywhere. And so we've always tried to keep it very simple. But over the last 5 years, OpenShot has had some issues too, and some of the biggest complaints we receive are stability complaints. That I dragged a clip over, and then there it goes, OpenShot crashes. And so that's obviously frustrating for us, and we've been trying to address it for, many years now. But a lot of the stability comes from not OpenShot itself, but the frameworks that we use. And what I mean by frameworks is there's a variety of libraries and open source, video codecs that are underneath OpenShot. And so I ask them to do something, and sometimes they do it, sometimes they crash. And so it becomes very frustrating for our users. So that's something that I was looking to address. Animation features is something that we've always had limited, ability to say slide something to the left, fade something in, but we never had a lot of fine-grained control. If perhaps you wanted to fade it in, rotate it, and or something a little more fine-tuned, you couldn't really do that in the current OpenShot. Performance, and there's nothing more frustrating than running a video editor and looking at your performance of your CPUs and seeing 2 or 3 of your CPUs not doing anything. I don't know if anyone has that experience, but so we wanted to make sure that if you have a multi-core machine, that all those cores are lit up and doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that's another thing we wanted to improve. And then frame accuracy. That's really, really important when you want to have the direction and speed of video change. So if you want to be able to play a video backwards and OpenShot needs the frame prior to the frame we're on, I have to be able to get that exact frame. And right now, it's not exactly frame accurate. So when OpenShot asks, sometimes it gives you the frame, the next frame, and it gets into a kind of a jitter, and then of course it'll probably crash after that. So those are all the things that I was looking to improve. In the last 2 years, I've been working on a new framework that's going to replace a big stack of software that OpenShot used to use. And so this year, you can actually see it on the show floor. We have a live demonstration of the new framework running. All the cores are running, good performance, and it's keeping up with 3 different layers of 1080p. So also, cross-platform. Right now, OpenShot is only on Linux, and that's something that we really wanted to address. We wanted to increase the size of our audience. And I think that's good for users to be able to choose a powerful open source video editor, whether it's Windows, whether it's Linux, or Mac, to have the same experience, much like Firefox has done, and many, many other packages. And one more thing, it's a little technical, but inside OpenShot, we use a lot of non-standard interface things, like a timeline. There's not a lot of programs that need timelines. And so that's always been a lot of custom code to draw these rectangles and things on the screen. And so we're going to be moving to an HTML interface inside of OpenShot. That's a much faster engine. It's of course one of the most highest performing canvas libraries out there, which is HTML, which is great. And video previews using OpenGL to be faster when you're scrubbing the timeline and previewing things. So these are all the goals I had and things that I wanted to accomplish. And so this is kind of where libopenshot was born, and this is the new library that's going to power OpenShot. And I'm not going to make this a programmer's speech. This is going to be more for users, but I just wanted to give a little background. So what libopenshot does is it's basically going to replace the MLT framework that powered OpenShot for many years now and has been awesome and is still really good. It just doesn't exactly fit the needs of what we need anymore. But basically, that's going to replace MLT and make it really easy for OpenShot to read videos, to find frames, to mix things, to animate things, and then that's what OpenShot is then going to sit on top of. So the 4 things I really, really wanted to do, though, is I wanted it to have a very, very simple API. And when I say simple, I mean because I have to go use this to then tie it into OpenShot. I don't want to make it complicated on myself. I want it to be ridiculously stable. I don't want it to crash. I just don't want it to crashing at all in this, because you can't work on a video editor and have it crash underneath you. It's impossible to use. And I want all my CPUs running, and I want it to be cross-platform. So those were the goals that I mentioned before, and those are the things that I have accomplished with it so far. Okay, so
Those all have been accomplished?
So these things have already been accomplished. And what I'm looking to do right now, there's a select group of people that have access to this source code. There's some people close on our team. We've been working very hard, and I'm looking to then have a more general release and start to integrate more people from the OpenShot community into this process. This has been a very tricky thing to build because it's so complicated, and I didn't want to put it out there too early and have everyone sending code to me and ideas, and then I thought I might end up in a situation where it's very unstable and I didn't get to kind of achieve my goals before I get too far into it. So why should editing video, why should these libraries be complicated? That's the question I ask myself. And these, I don't know how many people here have ever attempted to write something that deals with raw video, like from a programming perspective, but it is ridiculously complicated. And it's not hundreds of lines of code to open up a video and find a picture. It's thousands of lines of code. It's things that aren't documented. It's things that change a lot. It's competing frameworks. It's just very difficult. And so I asked myself, well, why does it have to be so difficult, and why can't we make a wrapper around it and make it very easy? And so this is actual code from the OpenShot library that one day soon OpenShot will actually use. And you can see that it's pretty simple. You just open up what I call a reader, and you pass it the name of your file. And then the next line, you can pretty much ask for any frame in the video with one line of code, and then you can save it, you can display it, you could then add it to a timeline, you can do a whole bunch of things. But that's what the API looks like that OpenShot will actually use, which also means you can use it in your own programs, whether it's a website, whether it's just a script, you want to rip through 100 gigs of video files, then you can do that very easily. And, okay?
Question on your music.
Yes.
You said it has a Creative Commons license. Where do you get your music from?
So the question is, where do I get music from for some of these videos? I get them from all over. Jamendo is one, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but Jamendo is one that's pretty good, a website that has a lot of Creative Commons work on it. So that's where I usually look. Okay, so abuse your CPUs. This was a real fun one. So trying to figure out how to take advantage of all your cores on a video editor is not easy to do, because files are read one packet at a time. Files aren't read in combination, in parallel. And then a lot of these things have to be put in order. You can't put frames out of order. Like, a lot of programs can do 5 things at once, but it doesn't matter when they finish necessarily. It's as long as they all finish. But in this case, it really does matter when I put frames back together that I put them in the same order. So basically, I'm using a framework called OpenMP for any of the developers in here. And this lets me create basically a pool of worker programs that take these frames, put them in, do whatever processing I want, and they pass them back to me very quickly. And then, so with that approach, and it's a very different approach than you see on most video players, which usually run 2 threads, one for video and one for audio. So anyway, it's a completely different kind of paradigm for video processing as far as I've seen. And but it makes it go where basically it spawns off these threads to all your processors, and you take advantage. So will all your CPU cores be used? Absolutely. Will your CPU hate you? Probably so, because it runs really hot. But that's what you want. You want your CPU doing stuff and not sitting idle when you're video editing. So basic features. So some of the things you can do with just a few lines of code, like I showed before, is you can save thumbnails, you can add subtitles, text, watermarks. You can trim your videos, setting an in and out point or a variety of in and out points. You can transcode videos. You can access video metadata, which I think is one of the coolest things, especially for websites that need to use this framework, is that with just 2 lines of code, as you can see on the screen, I can have access to just about every possible attribute of that video. And I can also tell if the video is valid, if it's just a bogus upload to my website. I can quickly save a thumbnail, put it up on my website. So you could imagine, without that much code, you could build your own. But yeah, some of the things you can get are frames per second, height and width, the pixel ratio, the aspect ratio, sample rate, audio channels, bit rates, time codes. It just goes on and on and on. And there's a lot of stuff, but it's all accessible with just 2 lines of code and a little bit of Python, and you can do whatever you want with it. So I think that's a neat feature. So some of the advanced features, which I'm going to show some demo videos of today in just a second, is animation curves. And so that really addresses the limitations of the current OpenShot, where I have basically a start and an end and just 2 keyframes. This makes it where you can pretty much do anything you've ever wanted to do. Time remapping, which is really cool. I'm not going to try to explain it right now, but it's very cool. Subpixel image processing, Chroma Key, color animation, waveform, and compositing. So I'm going to run through these real quickly and show you some demo videos, and I think you will enjoy them. Okay, so animation curves. And I'm going to try my best to make this not sound like a math class, because this is kind of a neat, interesting topic. But so basically, you might think of animation like Disney, and it's like cells moving, hand painted things, or giving it moving it each frame. And that's what it is. But to OpenShot, it's really the underlying problem is how do you change values over time and let the user control what those values are. And a pretty popular animation design pattern for this is to plot them with math, to use curves to adjust the value over time. And I'll show you how easy this is. It kind of sounds complicated, but it's really, really easy and really cool. But for example, if you wanted to move the position of an image across your video, you wanted to change the size of a video and have it go smaller and smaller, and then maybe fade out and spin at the end, things like that. Each of these attributes, like position, rotation, transparency, even the volume, all those things have a curve associated with them. And you can basically just plot points on a curve, what you want the value to be at what frame. And then all the middle points along that curve get automatically filled in by OpenShot. And so that makes a little bit of sense. I have a picture here. But how can they help us? Because as I said, it's nothing more than just a whole bunch of X, Y. But it would be insane if you think about trying to put every single value along every frame of a video, what pixel you want to put it on. That would be crazy. And that's why we have keyframes. So let me show you a quick demonstration. So this would be 3 different ways that you could adjust the volume, the loudness of the clip over time. And the first one would be holding it at a steady value. So even when you just say, I want my volume at 75%, that's still using a curve. It's just a curve with one point, and the slope is 0, and it just keeps going across at the same value. If you wanted the clip to start with no volume and then slowly get louder, the blue line on my picture over there shows that if every frame it was getting sequentially louder, it's what we call a linear curve. And that just means that the slope is the same all the way across. And then we have Bezier curves, which is more of anyway, I don't want to get too far into it, but it basically lets you adjust a curve not in a linear fashion. So in this case, the volume, it stays at nothing for longer, and then it gets louder faster than the linear curve. And so these curves can then be stitched together, and you can put as many curves together as you want for every single attribute. And it sounds a little complicated, but it's really not. And so I'm going to, so our curves, easy to use. And I sure hope they are, because we literally use them on every single thing in the OpenShot library. Even if you just have, like I said, a static value, like I want my clip to be transparent, then it's still represented by a curve object. Yes? Do you have a question?
Yes, do you have logarithmic curves?
Do I have algorithmic curves? Logarithm. No, right now the 3 types of curves are Bezier, which is a quadratic curve that lets you adjust. Anyway, I won't get into it, but it lets you, kind of like in an image program when you have like a vector and you have the handles on, you can kind of adjust the handles and the curve gets bigger or smaller. You can do that same basic thing and use Bezier curves, which is a real popular type of quadratic, it's a real simple quadratic curve used in animation a lot. Yes? Yeah, well, on top of this, how OpenShot chooses to use this library, it's going to put a lot of real simple things like, like you said, like being able to say, fade this in, fade that out, crossfade these two, and where those curves get drawn for you, so you don't have to do it. But behind the scenes, this is exactly what the front end will do for you, which is basically punch in a couple points, set some of those handles, and you'll have a nice curve that you can then go in and, and fine-tune if you want to adjust it. But anyway, you can see from the example code, you just create what's called a keyframe. This is, again, for the programmers, but you can add points to that keyframe. And I didn't show, there's a lot more stuff you can do with these, like changing what type of algorithm to use, whether it's Bezier or linear. But basically, behind the scenes, this is what's happening as far as the animation framework OpenShot's using. This is what it's powered by. It was influenced a lot by Blender, the 3D animation system, or the 3D animation open source package, which is, again, awesome. If you've never seen that, you should definitely go to check out Blender. But it has a very, very powerful animation system, and I've tried really hard to kind of imitate and take what I really like from that and incorporate that kind of stuff in. And then right after this, I'm going to show you some of these curves in action. But not only can you adjust simple properties like simple things, like volume or position or rotation, which kind of makes sense, these like transformation type image things. You can also affect what direction and what speed your video plays at. And this is one of the coolest things that I've been able to accomplish, I think, with this framework so far. And I don't think any open source video editor has this capability except this new OpenShot library and Blender, which has a very similar feature. But it's called time remapping, and it basically lets you map a curve to the time of your video. And so, if you look at this illustration, a normal video plays each frame sequentially, one bigger than the next. It's like, a 1-1 slope. It just kind of goes, frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, and it ends up just drawing a line up to the right kind of perpetually as long as the video plays. And so whenever you load a video into this new library, it's basically creating a time curve that's just set to normal, it's like to play forward. But if you wanted to get a little crazy, you could give it a curve that represents maybe start at the end of the video. So on frame 1, instead of playing frame 1, on frame 1, play the last frame, and then on frame 2, play one less than the last frame, and then you end up with a curve going the opposite direction. And then the audio, of course, there's some audio work that happens behind the scenes, but it'll be reversed and match the curve too. So audio gets matched up with it. But this lets you basically do, because it's a curve and you can stitch together as many curves as you want, this lets you, and you see this all the time on TV and movies, but it lets you basically have video going forward. It lets you gradually slow the video down as the audio gets crazier and crazier, and the voice gets deeper. And then it can rewind real quickly, and you can have them go forward and backward with audio in sync at any speed you want based on your time curve, just with a couple points. It's a really neat feature. It's used all the time on commercials and movies and TV, but it's basically, you can use it for real simple things. OpenShot will have an interface that lets you, say, reverse the video, play it forward, play it slow, or custom, which will let you go in and start to just play with that curve, which can create some really crazy things, of course. And then if you wanted to slow motion something, it would look something like that. It would still be going up and to the right because it's getting, you're going up in the frame numbers, but you're going much more gradual. So it stays on frame 1 for longer, it stays on frame 2 for longer, etc. So those are time curves. And then I'm going to play a quick video that uses time curves to kind of demonstrate what this does.
What brings you to the land?
Uh-oh. Let's see if I can get this to work.
What brings you to the land of the gatekeepers?
I'm searching for someone.
No. Okay, you're going to have to tolerate the flickering. I'm not, just my laptop's doing something really strange. Yeah, I see the same thing. Yeah, I never... Yeah, the white flashing is part of my laptop. It's not actually part of the effect. This is something to do with the projectors in my laptop, and I don't want to go messing with that or I'm going to mess it all up.
What brings you to the land?
Please don't. I'm mirroring right now. Okay, well that was unexpected. We'll just try to keep going. Okay, well what that was trying to showcase, even though it got all chopped up and I have no idea why, was that it played the video forward and backward and then in slow motion and then in fast forward, all in sequence with a few points on a time curve, is what I was trying to demonstrate there. And so basically, this is taking the time curve that I had and I plotted it in LibreOffice just to show you what it looks like. Forward, it went reverse, it went forward slow, reverse fast, and forward fast. And that's basically what we just saw. And I have a feeling it's going to do the same thing again.
What brings you to the land of the gatekeepers?
Okay, I'm just going to skip over that. Well, anyway, if you want to see that, you can come by my booth, and I will show you what that video actually looks like. It's actually quite cool. Yeah, I'll have this at my booth, too. Y'all can come by and check it out. But it's a real HD, cool thing. I'm kind of disappointed it didn't work. Okay, so moving on. Sub-pixel precision. This is a real interesting problem, too, I had to face, because sometimes when you're animating, you need to put things in places that don't exist on the screen. And you only have so many pixels on a screen. If maybe it's a 1280 by 720 or whatever. But sometimes you need to move things by less than a pixel, or else you end up with a very jittery kind of animation. And so this was a fun thing to kind of research and figure out how to get over. But basically, what happens is it uses an image distort algorithm, and even though when it's still on, if you think of like a logo and you want to slide the logo across the screen, which I have a demo for this too, but it might have the same problem. you can slowly have it look like it's moving in less than 1 pixel increments, but it's using a lot of real trickery, and it's basically dithering edges and then dithering that edge and dithering this edge, even though it's taking the same number of pixels. And then finally it moves over 1 pixel and dithers that edge, and then it's a series of these image processing routines, which is very CPU intensive, but because we're using all the cores on the computer, we're able to keep up in real time with most stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it'll fill in whether now that's not perfect yet. Trying to more. He's asking, does it fill in on the time curves? If you have a slow motion, does it try to fill in and estimate? And it does try. It's not perfect yet, but it does try. So everything you do though is that these animation curves can literally they're all floating point numbers. They often want where they want to put it on a pixel that doesn't exist, and it has to be kind of faked and pushed and pulled, but it looks very, very smooth, which is the end result. Is you have very smooth animation, which is what the user will see. Okay, colors. This is another thing that often video editors will let you create, like a background, for example, or text, and they'll let you set the color, right? But they don't always let you animate the color along curves. And this is one other thing. Just about everything in this library uses curves, and colors is no different. So this is a simple example of three different curves, one for red, blue, and green. And again, I have a video that's going to show this, and I hope it works. But so basically, you can have anything that lets you set a color in OpenShot will let you change the color of that over time gradually. And so you can just remove some blue from it, add some red, change between one color and another, and it just seamlessly fades the colors between. So it's another neat use of curves. Okay, waveform animation is a fun thing I added in. This is all the audio data that you get in OpenShot. It's already a curve. The audio data is already just begging to be plotted and played with on the screen. And so I made a very easy way, as you can see from the example down there. So it's very easy then to take something on your timeline and say, instead of the video that it has, I would rather see a cool animation of the waveform and what color I want to make it. And you can fade the color, and I'm going to again try to demonstrate that. I think I can actually just open these videos up after the presentation and just show them, because I think that'll probably work fine. Okay, Chroma Key. This is a demonstration we have at the OpenShot booth. If you haven't been by, you should definitely come and stand in our live Chroma Key demonstration. But this is basically replacing a color behind the actor, and then whatever's behind it on the timeline shows through. So you're basically deleting a color out of the frame, and you can do this with many different colors if you want to, but I guess you have to be careful because you'll make the person disappear you'll make everything disappear if you get too aggressive with it. And that's a green screen, right? And so this is actually one of the clues on the scale poker game. So if you want to know the answer to it, then please stop by my booth and I'll tell you the actual answer. But yeah, we're doing a live demonstration in the OpenShot booth, and it's pretty neat. You can stand there. We even have some green things you can hold up in front of you, which makes it you can make your face disappear and things like that. But it's kind of neat. Okay, and then I'm getting here toward the end. The compositing and layers. This is just a fancy way of the word composite, which you hear a lot in video editors. It's really just combining images together, and how do you do that? And it happens all the time in image programs. If you think about GIMP or Inkscape, it's having to do this a lot of times in real time. But it's taking whether you want to use add the colors together, subtract them, multiply them, how they mix the layers together. And so that's basically, anyway, it's very easy then within the library to go create a timeline, to put things on the timeline, to set the layer of them, and then set how they get composited together. Again, I'm not going to dig into that too much, but it is a very powerful compositing engine. Again, it can keep up with real-time 1080p type video and do a pretty good job. And this is just a simple example of what maybe a standard timeline would look like. I don't know if it's too small. It might be a little small on the screen. But it basically shows you that when you add things to the timeline, you're basically creating a stack, like a stack of papers or a deck of cards. And that the video behind is going to be covered up in part by the video on top of it, and then the watermark on top of that. If you fade something away, whatever's under it is going to show through. It's just a stack, much like GIMP does with layers or Inkscape, but it's happening over time. So it's just a stack of cards changing over time, which is really what we're dealing with. And that's kind of an illustration showing how that works. Okay, so I have another demo after this, but just to kind of recap, it's free, it's open source, it's powerful. Not only will the new OpenShot video editor use it, but you too can, once we make this more publicly available, can put this onto your website. You could put this into your own code. All it needs is Python and an installer. It's cross-platform. And so I expect there's going to be all sorts of cool video converters, simple video editors, tools, websites that are going to use this by this time next year. I think we're going to have I think this is just something that you can't do otherwise. It's just very difficult. But now people are going to be able to set up without having to buy an expensive, online video editing service for their website. They're going to be able to plug in a library like this and with a few lines of code have video editing in their own website. And I think this is going to, and as that community grows of people helping me make this better, I think it's going to, it's going to improve OpenShot with the side effect of our framework getting better. Okay, so let me try another video demonstration. Yeah, that one didn't mess up. So this is showing a color key background changing colors. It's showing the waveform animation, which is also changing color. It's showing subpixel animation with the scale logo. It's showing alpha animation with the middle. And this entire thing is screaming fast. It can generate this in near real time, I think, on this one. But that basic kind of stuff was only accomplished, that whole animation was done with like 5 or 6 lines of Python code. And so that's why I'm really thinking that if I make it simple enough, if I make it easy, and I get it out there and it's stable, I think a lot of people are going to find all sorts of creative uses for this. And one other thing that I thought was kind of neat was a similar thing to this, but I tried to make it match the actual LibreOffice, and if it doesn't go crazy. But this is showing an animation over top my actual Libre presentation, which is, again, is something that if you have your own video framework, why not give it a try. So once again, the waveform animation is another thing that I don't see in a lot of video editors as far as being able to control that. And there's all sorts of little things you can do to adjust from the color to the shape to how it looks, but being able to use that as a layer in your own video, which is kind of a cool effect. And you can, of course, resize it, move it, and it's very pretty looking. And you'll see as it fades down, the waveform gets smaller. So it's animating, even after the animation curves on the volume happen, it's animating the resulting volume after you've done some curve-based animation. So, but anyway, so I'm glad the last 2 videos worked. But basically, that's what we've been working on. I'm pretty much ready for questions if you have any. Yes?
With respect to that waveform generation, can you conceivably do a stereo slide, with that in a slide?
So do we have a microphone for questions? So the question was, could we, instead of just displaying it as that type of format where it's being plotted out, could you do something else? I'm not exactly sure what you said, but... Right. Yeah. I mean, right now that particular feature is pretty simple, and it's not as powerful as some of the other animation features. But certainly, it's the audio data is very easy to access and to do things like that with. So it wouldn't be that difficult to plug something like that in. That would be a good thing for someone to contribute because that sounds complicated. Any other questions?
Several, but I'll stick to one.
Yes.
First.
Thank you.
You mentioned the things that you have already accomplished, and among those were the cross-platform thing. Does that mean that it is available cross-platform, or that you have it working cross-platform? I have it working in a cross-platform way, but I still need more time to finish up some of the packaging and the installers, and that part I'm going to get the community involved in, and you'll let them help me do that. But all of the behind the scenes, I'm not using anything that's specific to Linux, even though Linux is my target. That's what I've been focusing on, but I'm not using any stack of software that's specific to Linux. All of it is cross-platform, and all my build tools, all my compilers, all my everything I've done I've been kind of doing in parallel with Windows, and just to make sure everything stays, cross-platform. And so that's basically where I am. It's not been generally released yet, which is going to come as soon as I have a chance to start looping the community in and testing this at a wider scale. So you don't have a project timeline for when it'd be released cross-platform? I don't have a specific timeline for this, but it's certainly targeted for this 2013. I just don't have a specific date.
this is a big, ambitious project. And just to stress again, like a lot of open source projects, I don't do this full time. This isn't my job. I don't make any money from this, and so this is volunteer work, and it takes a lot of hours to pull off what I have right there, and it's going to take a lot more to get it released and to get the community tied in. And but I thought it was far enough along now that I could demonstrate it, and get people excited about it and try to reach out to the developer community a little.
Can I take one more?
Sure.
I started asking 2 scales ago about a way to save my clips so that I could have basically a library of defined clips to reuse in making other projects. And
I think we do have a way we can accomplish that if you stop by the booth, and I think there's some things you could probably do that would make that real easy.
All right, cool, thanks.
Any other questions?
First of all,
I think it's on, yeah.
The framework is amazing.
Thank you.
Really great work. I'm really excited about it. But I'm wondering, you had mentioned how you wanted to keep OpenShot simple and sort of stay away
I see
from
where
being
this is going, yeah.
too complicated, which I like, but also one of my problems with OpenShot is that it is too simple, so I can't use it in like a professional setting. So right now I'm forced to use Lightworks, and so I'm wondering what your plans are for the software itself. And basically, I want to hear that you're going to beat Lightworks and just like be
well, true. So he's asking if I'm going to be better than the Academy Award-winning Lightworks commercial software. I can't say that confidently that I will be better because I'm one person and they're a company. But certainly, the bigger question I think is OpenShot's very simple. We've always made it to be simple because we don't want to lose. There's a lot of complicated tools, but there's not a lot of simple tools that still let you do cool things. But I think this is going to be a balancing act. There's not going to be 2 versions of OpenShot. There's going to be one. But there's certainly going to be curve editors and ways to adjust time and curves and there's going to be more animation tools, but probably they're going to be hot cut. They're going to be like a keyboard shortcut or a open up right click curve editor. They're not going to be something you have to use to understand OpenShot, but that if you know what you're doing, then you can jump right into those dialogues and work on it. So certainly I will have more professional features. It will be more stable, and it will be able to handle, it'll be faster, with bigger HD files, and I think it will suit a lot of people that OpenShot currently doesn't suit. But whether it will beat Lightworks, I'm not going to answer that.
All right, thank you.
Question?
Again, I'd just like to echo the previous questioner. This stuff is cosmically cool. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm wondering, my initial reaction is, God, when can I have it? And so I'm wondering if you have previously managed open source projects and exactly how you phase in other contributors and build a community around the work that you're doing, potentially to accelerate when other people can start to collaborate and contribute.
Well, that's a very good question. It's tricky to balance people jumping in too early, and and on OpenShot I had people come in quite early, but it wasn't as complicated as this. There wasn't an API necessarily. It was just make a new window, make a new dialogue, and people started helping me. But there's a pretty large community around OpenShot itself of users, of students that get taught it. For example, like in India, it's taught in their junior high and high school level on all the school districts in southern India, and so there's literally over 1 million people a year that touch OpenShot and learn how to use it. But again, going on the real simple, it's very easy to use. But yeah, it's tricky when something like this is just going to add on to OpenShot, and it's very complicated. And so I've been kind of struggling figuring out how to tiptoe into this and when to get people. But I've had a team of people work with me on this, a small team that have been hugely helpful because I couldn't have done this all by myself. And but yeah, I think in the next month there's going to be a lot more posts and community outreach and stuff. But OpenShot's community already has a pretty large developer, pool of people that contribute small things and medium-sized things. And so I'm definitely going to try to bring them in and help. But another question?
Somewhat related. Did you say you currently can handle HD files, and as far as codecs importing different types of codecs, like DNX or Motion JPEG, all those types
Right,
of
so
things?
right now, I guess I didn't really have a slide on this, but it uses the Ffmpeg engine underneath all of this. So that's the core library. So all of the encoding and decoding functionality comes through that. So that basically, I don't have the full list, but it's a very large list of codec support. But that doesn't ship with my library. It just comes through the use of that library, you know, using that library. Because there's different versions of Ffmpeg, some that have this codec and some that have, you know, very few codecs. But whatever version you have, those are the formats that my library would be able to read and understand. And also we have, at our booth, we have, if anyone's in the, no, I don't know if this might be over some people's head, but we have Blackmagic support. So all the Blackmagic line of products work with the OpenShot library already, which is basically a really cool set of capture and playback cards. So the green screen booth that we have right now has live video coming in through Blackmagic, has processing all happening through OpenShot's library, and then playing out on Blackmagic. And so, so that's another set of hardware tools that if you really want to get into video editing, there's a lot of neat products like that that can do a lot of work for so your computer doesn't have to do it. You know, so there's less work happening. Any other questions? One over there.
What we were watching, was that real time or did you have to render?
No, these videos were rendered. Now, a couple of them render in near real time, but I wasn't attempting to run a live on this little laptop. It would just be a sad. I don't think it has that many cores, but yeah, these were pre-rendered movies. But the OpenShot booth down on the trade show floor, that's all real time. It's real time because you can go walk into the picture and see yourself walk into the picture, so you know it's not pre-rendered.
One more question?
Sure.
I stopped by the booth and I did see the Chroma Key that's going on. Do you have, or is there any plans in the future for you to make a virtual switcher that you're able to?
I think that's a good question. I think that's the kind of thing I'm imagining people contributing as this library becomes more available and starts to be released in various distributions and on Windows and Mac. I think that's going to be things, people are going to use it in ways like that. I bet you're going to have a virtual video switcher, real-time effects engine, you know, node-based video process. You're going to have all that come because this engine lets you do that real easily with very little code. So if there's a demand, it will come, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions? This is most of my development happens on Ubuntu, and I use various versions mainly to test compatibility. I got lots of virtual machines. But really it's Ubuntu is what I've been focusing on, and all the development tools I use as far as community management all comes through Launchpad, which is another Canonical sponsored product. I use the Bezier source control, which is Canonical. I do a lot of I stay in that ecosystem for sure.
Which version of Ubuntu do you use the most?
Which version do I use the most? I have some machines that have 10.04 that I've been so lazy and I've been afraid to upgrade them. But certainly some of the development I've been doing is on 12.10. I think the 12.10. Yeah, I think the booth is running 12.10. All my stuff is running on 12.10. So it works on the last 4 releases easy. I'm sure if you went back far enough, it would not work. You know, I'm sure there's something I haven't done right, but I haven't tested on that.
Pretty simple question, and that is, does the current release of OpenShot Video Editor use this library, or are we waiting for another release for that to happen?
That's going to be a big release, and that's probably going to be our 2.0 release, and it's going to take a lot of work, but you're going to see there's going to be a lot of talk about that as we approach that, and we're going to need a lot of beta testing, because this is, I'd like to get the framework out there deployed and released prior to OpenShot trying to use it. That's really what I'm trying to get done, because that way whenever we depend on it, it won't break every package across the Linux ecosystem that no one else has this new package, you know. So I've been trying to coordinate that a little. Python 2.7? It works on Python 2.6 and 7. I haven't tested with the newer Python versions, but it definitely it's running Python 2.7 down at my booth.